Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. So I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest to me, but I'm joined by Miss Maureen Sweatman. Now, if you follow my journey online, you know I've been very transparent about my journey with visualization and being experimental, as they say, with my own well-being and practicing new things. Vision boarding and all that. But I don't think a lot of people know that, I just started this vision boarding journey, and it was Miss Maureen Sweatman that got me involved. So I wanted to bring her on because I had such a powerful experience with it doing my first vision board last year, 2021. I can't believe it's a new year. And I was like, wow, it was really helpful. I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to talk to Maureen about her experience, being a vision board expert or guru. But before we get started, Maureen, go ahead and give the listeners a little bit of background on who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'm so excited to be with you and have really gotten to enjoy getting to know you over the past year through your visioning work. So a little bit about me. I am founder and chief joy officer of Joyful Living Coaching. So you can probably guess what my focus is on teaching and supporting people and choosing more joy in their life. By way of background, I'm originally from coastal South Carolina. That's where this lovely twang comes from. And I'm a mom of a teenage daughter, so I'm living that part of life. And I'm what I like to call a zookeeper. I have several pets. I grew up on a farm and love animals, so I have as many pets as I can have in a suburban household here in Metro Atlanta in Georgia. In terms of background and career, I worked over 15 years in higher education in several roles. The one there, when I transitioned out, I was focused on career coaching and running a career center. So I have a background and love for working with people who learn, everyone from, freshmen, first year students just coming in to all the way through PhDs and people who are lifelong learners. So that's a little bit about me. I am a professionally certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. I have a Master's of Divinity and an MBA from Emory University. So that's a little bit of background about me, Phil.
Wow, I love it. I love a lot. I know I learned some new things. I think I heard some of these things on other podcasts you've been on, but I still learned new nuggets because I didn't remember about the coastal South Carolina twang. But so you were a higher ed professional, which you transitioned into your own new thing and new venture. But can you go back to your journey as starting, creating vision boards and how, this started for you individually, this vision board creation?
Absolutely. So I launched Joyful Living Coaching, 7 years ago now. And when I was in that process, I had learned about vision boards right before, kind of while I was marinating on what's this business going to be? What's it going to focus on? How am I going to show up and use my strengths? And I did a vision board. It was the first time I had done one. And I did it for 5 years. I'm a strategic planner, so I like to take the long view. So I did my first one for 5 years. And 5 years later, which at this point was just a couple of years ago, like right before the pandemic started, everything on that vision board had come to fruition. And when I sat down to do that vision board, it was totally like, let's throw everything up in the air, dream big, check all those fears of I can and what happens if and all the worry. You just kind of, bookmark that, as it were, or push it to the side and just really let myself dream big. And so I was hooked from then on out and have been doing vision boards in my business with my coaches. When I was still, running the business and working in higher education, I did vision boards with my students. I did vision boards with my staff. Pretty much anybody that's willing to do a vision board with me, I will do it because I'm a believer, because visualization is really powerful. Our intention is really powerful. In fact, a colleague and I just did a vision board party last weekend. So I'm all about it. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there, right? I work with so many people who are stuck, miserable, want something different out of life. And it's really because they haven't taken the time to step back and think about what the big picture vision is for themselves. They're just kind of bumping along based on what life throws at them. But if you have that vision set, it really can be your guide, your kind of North Star, as it were.
Now, so my curiosity was, okay, so you did one for 5 years. In that gap, like when you made this vision board for 5 years, did you keep on making individual mini ones every year to compound on it, or you just stayed with that one for the 5 years?
So for me personally, I stayed with the one, and then I based my goals on that big picture vision. Now that works for me. That doesn't work for everybody. For some people, that 5 years is too big, and so they need to do a year. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong here is the good news. You got to find what works for you. So most people just starting out, I have them do one for a year and see how that works for them. And then if they want to go bigger, they can the next iteration. So it's really some, like you said earlier, experimental, kind of play around with and see what works for you.
So another question, when you were doing it, you said you did your first one 7 years ago. Was this you said you were in higher ed. Was this in concurrence with your coaching, or you got the coaching after you did your first vision board? And if it was in the same time as your coaching, was this like a coaching technique? Like who was the inspiration like to start it? Like, you told me 7 years ago, but was it like, hey, Maureen, and it was like a coach of your, one of your, coaches put you on to it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil. I think it was a combination. So I was working with my own personal coach to sort of sort through what was going on for me. I was really wrestling with, I feel like I'm at a career transition point. What does that mean? Am I going to stay in higher ed? Am I going to switch institutions? Am I going to get all this all together? I had this MBA, like I used to joke that I was, driving a horse and wagon. I had this Ferrari of an MBA parked in the garage. So, thinking about how to make that happen. So for me, it was kind of culmination of all of that. And I had really just learned about visioning in that way with vision boards. And so for me, it was trying it out to see where it took me. And I actually had some guinea pig co-worker friends that did it with me, and we sat down and did them together. And so for me, it pulled all of that together, because the other thing to note here is it's really helpful if you take a holistic approach when it comes to vision board. Your goals can be targeted to certain areas, but when you take kind of that big picture of your whole life in a vision board, it's really helpful. And so I was at a point that I was thinking, okay, who am I going to become in the next 5 years? Because that's a great question to have in mind when you sit down to do it. Because often people think stuff, let me put stuff on the vision board, and that can lead us astray. It's more about who you want to become. And so I was really wrestling with, I know who I've been to this point. Who do I want to become in the next 5 years? That's business owner at some point. That's mom, all those things.
Awesome. I love that. And so one of my thoughts is, I think one of the best parts about our experience, just giving the listeners a little background, is that I won a contest, and, I was kind of buying into it, and I brought a friend along, my friend Dorothy, and we did it together. But one of the things I really enjoyed about the vision board, because I'm more like a tangible person, was the after part where we look at it, but then we list out goals. And you said, you saw me, I went a little OD with my first set of goals. But can you explain, like, going back to your journey, what was that like? Like when you made your first vision board for 5 years, what was that process like? Did someone tell you, like, when you look at it, you're supposed to write the goals? Like, how did you take the board to the tangible part?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in higher ed, I had been working with my staff as a team lead on SMART goals. And so that was just natural for me. So one of my strengths for folks that do Gallup strengths, one of my strengths is achiever or achievement. And so that means I pursue excellence. And I'm like you, Phil, I have way too many goals. So I've had to learn to have SMART goals and to rein that in. Instead of 20, let's focus on 2 at a time. And so for me, it was, again, with that coach kind of guiding me through it, what I was doing at work with my staff around goals, it kind of brought that together. Like, okay, I need to translate that learning to this vision board process and create some goals for myself. And as I was doing it, I was building out this kind of workshopping how I would do this with clients to make it make sense and to be something valuable.
Got it. So
Yeah.
so then you did it, you wrote it out. Where did you put your first vision board?
So for me, so it's important that you put it somewhere that you're going to interact with it regularly. And so for me, that has always been the certain spot on a bedroom wall because I see it regularly. Right now, it's next to my rowing machine. So every time I sit down, which is 3 to 5 times a week on the rowing machine, it's like right there looking at it, right?
Mhm.
So it's really important that you put it somewhere that you will interact with it. Now, for some people, they think, okay, this feels really personal, and so I don't necessarily want it on display in my home, and they show it in a closet somewhere or out of sight, out of mind. One of the strategies I've shared with folks, and I've done it for myself this year, is to take a picture of it and put it on your phone. So
Yeah.
maybe it's your screensaver, or you take all the apps and junk that's on the first screen and you make it blank and you have that be your screen so that you see your vision board. So somewhere that it's really visible that you can interact with. Otherwise, it's pointless. If you're not looking at it, it's not going to be of help to you. But for
I
me
love
personally, there's a certain spot in my bedroom where it
I love
sits.
that technique because what I did is I took a picture of it, but I made it one of my favorites. So that when you do the little art, the heart on the iPhone, so it's
Yeah.
easy to share with others and also just have it ready. And then also it's in my podcast room because I record all the time, so it's right here to the side of me right now.
That's
So
good.
one thing that popped out in my mind, and obviously this is a free fault, but you said you have a background in religion, a divinity,
Mhm.
and so can you speak to the spiritual component? Like, did you meditate? Did you pray?
Mhm.
Did you ask God? And have like the prayer part. Like, I know that there's because I know a lot of times when we think about manifestation and visualization, we're talking about taking charge of our life, right? But then you hear a lot of
Yeah.
phrases, especially in the religious community, is like, but put it in God's hands, which takes a little bit of agency out of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I put my life in God's hands. Where's my agency? So can you speak to that spiritual component of, like, I don't know, just how did you pray
Yeah.
about it? Did you, does it mixture with your agency that you have control over things, but also even in the chart of your life and journey that things veer off or your goals or your vision board veers off?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's helpful to keep in mind that the way we think about it and the plans we make for it aren't always what the divine brings to us to
Hmm.
get us there necessarily.
Hmm.
And so I like to make sure that people practice in their tradition.
Hmm.
So whether you're, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, make sure you're practicing right in a way that feels authentic to you, um, within your beliefs. And so for people that believe in the divine source providing, it isn't giving away your agency. In fact,
Hmm.
it's sitting in it more fully. So for me, the way to do that personally is I do have a yoga practice and a meditation practice daily. I also have a gratitude practice that I do with my daughter. And so those are really grounding exercises for me that tap into my spirituality. And for people who are seeking or are agnostic or atheist, that doesn't mean this doesn't work for you. How you think about it might be different, and what your practices are might be different. So again, it goes back to you have to put some context for this, right? Like I'm sharing out of my particular lens, but everybody's is different. And the good news is the visioning process works for everybody.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I was thinking about that too, because like there is a very spiritual component. Like there's a
Mhm.
very like I don't know what my destiny is, but at least I'll try to move towards something. Like, and even if I
Yeah.
veer left or right, I'm still moving towards something. So I definitely look at I look at the images that I had on my vision board, and like maybe it was like a person or something, and I never met that person, but it was like something very similar happened. So I could say, okay, I still claim that on my vision, right? And so
Yeah.
maybe can you have an example of like maybe one image that you had on your 5 year plan, where like when you looked at that picture or whatever it was, I was like, wow, I had it. It was a very laser focus. I don't know. I had Emory or some thing, but I ended up over
Yeah.
here, and it was like randomly connected, but still not directly that picture. Do you have an example like that for yourself?
Yeah, that's something that pops into my mind, and I'm glad you bring up that point because it does our how we think about it and feel about it shifts over the time as well. We
Mm,
might have put it thinking one thing, but
yeah.
by the end of the process, it might become something else. And so the one that pops in my head for me for my old vision board, the 5 year one, the first 5 year one, was it was a picture of a baby's hand holding a rattle, and next it said something about motherhood. So above all else, my first priority in life is to be a mother and break generational cycles of some things. And
Mm,
so when I put that there, I had that in mind. And I was also in conversation at the time with a good friend about surrogacy. So, a gay man who wants to have children or thought he wanted to have children. So, we were in that process, and I thought that was going to come to pass in those 5 years. But his journey ended up being different. He decided not to go that route. So, how I thought about that when I put it on the board
mm, gotcha.
was shifted. It was still all good. It worked out the way it worked out, right? But my thinking and what I originally had, intended shifted, and it was fine with me. It was good.
So what about failure and disappointment? Because you've been my coach, right? And I know I put a lot of things of accomplishments, especially in the 1 year thing, and it fell short. It didn't come true.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I was a little, not, yeah, I was disappointed for some of those things that I envisioned, and it just didn't happen. Well, things that I did. So I definitely was like, man, like 70%. That's still a passing grade. But how do you deal
Yeah.
with that either for yourself or your clients when they just have this laser focus on their board and that thing doesn't come true, or I don't know, just
Yeah, that's a
doesn't
good
happen. It doesn't happen for them.
that's a good question. So it makes me think actually of a conversation I was in this morning with a group of coaches, and the presenter was talking about different strategies for our own um, focus on our own leadership. So, and one of the things she talked about that really helps us do that well is, and she used to be a basketball coach, so she was using lots of basketball analogies. And she said one of the five best practices to rebound, like
Mm,
literally think about basketball. And so, when it's time for a rebound, players don't just walk off the court, right? Like they get in, they rebound, and they turn the game around, right? And see where it takes them. It's not, let's flip the table and be done with this when there's a failure, right?
yeah,
It's also where it's important to set yourself up for success. Meaning, think about those SMART goals, keep it contained, think about the habits you can create that will support your goals to set yourself up for success. So that really helps us manage it well. And then sometimes things just happen and it
yeah,
doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to, and we are disappointed or we're angry or whatever emotion may come. Honor that emotion and then get on with it. Come up with a new goal, figure out how you could tweak it.
mhm,
Check in with yourself. Does this still even a part of my vision? Is this still what I want to become, who I want to become? Do I need to rethink this? If not, then let's think about what's a strategy, a goal that will help get you there differently. So how do you rebound? Right. I was joking this morning that because the question came up of which one of these five best practices are you going to focus on? And I said rebound because, again, that achiever strength in me, where it becomes a weakness is when I don't do well, right? I kind of beat up on myself and get my feelings. And so I said, okay, I'm going to focus on rebound because I tend to rebound well in the long run, but I kind of have some Dennis Rodman attitude about it along the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
So don't discount your feelings, do the processing. There might even be some grief involved in the letting go of what you thought was going to be, but don't just chuck the whole enterprise out because one thing didn't work out the way you thought it would.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, shout out to the Dennis Rodman reference. I mean, that means you have a lot of rebounds, and are lane. And I love that because rebound means a missed shot. So you missed the shot, but you get a rebound and then you try to put it
Right,
back up. So it means like
right.
you take lots of shots, you get lots of rebounds. So, someone has a lot of rebounds means they or someone missed a lot of shots for them to get rebounds, right?
Yep.
But one of the things I was thinking about too is like I love that like out of failure comes a you reanalyze whether I wanted that anyway. So I remember those times where I had shortcomings and then I look at it, I'm like, okay, I don't want it next year. So that one didn't follow through. Like I was like, all right. But and then other ones, it reaffirmed it. Like I'm gonna try it again and put the same image. I'm gonna put the same image over and over and over until it happens. And it was like, so it was almost like a filtering system at the beginning of the new year. Which ones is gonna carry over? Which ones I'm gonna leave behind? I'm like, okay, that's not a part of who I want to be. So I really like that. That as you process shortcomings, you could just take a step and say, okay, is that a shortcoming that I want to continue to push through and try again, or is like, maybe that wasn't that important to me, and can we talk about just a little bit about accountability? Because I've noticed a lot of times you said, my daughter and me did the goals or the gratitude, me and my friend did it. So can you talk about this journey about visualization, solo versus collective? Because I'd be totally transparent. I think it was very helpful. I would have been down to do my one-on-one coaching with you. Like, you're great. But it was also like, for me, I knew that bringing Dorothy into it with me checked me. And so I am a very accountable person. I'm also a very public person. Like, I told people what my goals are, like almost like publicly shame myself in a way, like, because it was like, if I tell people publicly this is what I'm going to do, then the whole world is going to be like, yo, Philip, what's going on with that? How you working toward that? And I was like, all right, I made myself accountable. Like, I put it out there. So can you talk about that solo journey and like accountability of a group journey and how you find that balance, that balance and such?
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes back to the theologian in me. So instead of either or thinking, both and thinking. So you are on this journey solo, and we are communal creatures. And most people, I would dare say all of us, do better when we have some accountability system in place. And for a lot of people, that involves another person, whether that's kind of publicly, like you named, or one-on-one, like you named with Dorothy. So this comes back to people knowing what works for them or experimenting to figure out what works for them. So you might need several ways to hold yourself accountable, just like you said, Phil, where you said, well, I put it out there publicly, and I had this one-on-one person, and I was meeting with a coach. So you can also have different accountability people for different things. So I have, for instance, a person that I check in with. We just do it used to be weekly. Now it's every 2 weeks, just a quick message on Instagram to check on our nutrition and health goals. That's all we talk about. Not because we don't want to talk about other things, but that's what we've set up as our accountability around that goal that we share in common. But then I have a coach, kind of this bigger picture thinking, that I help check in with from an accountability standpoint. I'm someone, going back to that solo notion, who likes the gamification of things. And again, in that achiever strength, I like to win. So when I do my rowing for my exercise goals, I'm calculating it in my Fitbit, right? I want to see at the end of the week that I got my 5 out of 5 goal. It's going to pop up and say, ta-da, good job, right? So that works for me. So there are different things you can try. And I would encourage people to think from that both and perspective. What things can you put in place for yourself, like the Fitbit tracker, like, other things you come up with, and what might involve other people that you're willing to share. So maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a coach. It really just depends on what you're focusing on and what feels most comfortable to the person, because you don't want to have the barrier or the hurdle of discomfort, right? If it makes me too anxious to talk to the bestie about a certain topic, then they don't need to be my accountability partner for that topic. It needs to be somebody I'm comfortable sharing about that topic with. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm going to do a huge pivot and ask a random question like, am I one of the few Black males that you've had as clients? And if so, and this is, like just anecdotal, I understand your identity and speaking on other things, like, do you think that there is less buy-in for particularly males and Black males into this as other identity groups? Because, and this is, I'll share my point, that I have not seen a lot of Black men do vision boards. Even in my fraternity, I threw it out there, and only one brother sent me his vision board in a text. It was my brother, the George. And I was like, shout out, like, wow, like, he's like, Philip, I wanted to share those with you. And so I'm just like wondering, like, in your, when you do these workshops and, you see the groups, like, just, I don't know, I'm just seeing the diversification of this activity. I don't see it as much in my perspective. So, that's just me.
Yeah. No, I think it's a valid point. And when I am working with clients one-on-one or doing events, it is mostly female identified. And there's a good spectrum around racial diversity and other types of diversity, sexual orientation and class and all those things. But to your point, I do think that I don't see African American men in those spaces. And so it makes me question lots of things there, right? And there are lots of systems that could be barriers for them feeling like that's something they want to do, they can do, that would be supported. Much in the way that therapy has had a stigma in certain communities. It makes me think of that, right? And so, because there is this self-reflective process, there's this, an event like that, there's a group kind of process, that people, it might not feel like safe and brave space for them. And that's okay, right? They can elect for that. I think it helps when folks like you, Phil, are willing to put it out there and support and kind of build. So you shared it with one person, and who will they share it with? And who will they share it with? And who will they share it with? So I think that's how we can kind of spread the message of how this can be powerful. I think it also depends the circle it's in, because if you think about the sports industry, to go back to this, visualization is a technique that's used there all the time. It's studied. And we know that, the demographics of that world is largely male, skews people of color, dominant. And so visualization is a technique we know that works for those demographics. But the vision board, there might be a disconnect there, right? That might be too, I can't speak because that's not my lens, but I could guess it might feel too artsy craftsy or warm and fuzzy, or maybe that's what white ladies do. I get that. And so even if people run with the notion of visualization more than the vision board, that's really where the power is the visualization.
I love that, because I was about to say, I've seen videos like LeBron closing his eyes, and he practices mindfulness even in games. There was a clip where he literally he brought himself and centered himself in a game. So that visualization is there. But I'll also just speak to my experience, is that when I was first doing it, I don't know. I mean, and all about energy, it felt like a feminine energy, girls do this. I don't, and it felt like, and I'm working on it, working on myself. Like I felt like I was in a preschool again, and I was the only boy. I was the only boy at the preschool table with all the colors and crafts and the glue sticks and all that. And I just had to push through. And I was like, I'm going to push through this notion of a binary. It's almost like I want to push through and remove this binary thought. Why is this attached to femininity? Why is this attached to masculinity? My vision is attached to my vision is attached to my identity. So if I
and the whole
masculine, then when I put this stuff on the board, this is my vision. My vision is attached to my identity. I didn't attach this craft stuff to a binary, a gender role or what, you know what I'm saying? It was almost like I had to forcefully say, this activity is not attached to a gender or identity or black or white. This vision was attached to who I identify as.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would push you to think too that it could be that it is feminine energy, and where we've done disservice to men in our society is that we've taught them to not embrace their feminine energy. We all have feminine and masculine energy within us, both and, right? And a whole person. Even our hormones reflect that, right? We all have estrogen and testosterone. And so it's different levels, right? And so rethinking, making that mindset shift of this might initially feel like feminine energy, and I've been taught to not embrace that. but let's shift that and see where it takes us anyway, because we know this technique works.
Yes. Yes,
So,
I love that. I mean, that's where like I was very shameless. We have a listserv of 50 brothers, and when I do a monthly newsletter, and so in this newsletter, I'll send it to you. I'll forward you the email I sent. I legit just put a picture of my vision board and said, "Hey brothers, if you want to join," like I like put it out there. I don't care, whatever. But I love that, like that embracing. That's what I got a master's in counseling. And I was like, wow, like a lot of these attachments and stigma about counseling and therapy and just in general about well-being. Like when we think about all these well-being techniques and journaling and gratitude, I think some of the things I've started to realize is that one, we attach it to gender, but we also attach it to like, I guess, social economic class. Like, like the only people that could be doing these vision boards, those rich white women at a rich white woman at a coffee shop with her girlfriends. And like, I was like, man, but like, why can't well-being be for all and all groups and social economically, like it's affordable. Like I could afford to make this vision board, like we should make, it's like equitable, like me participating on it. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes when I participate in well-being as a Black male, I am purposely doing it as a way to say like, we deserve space in this. We deserve space in vision boarding. We deserve space in the activities that other people do all the time, and I
absolutely. And it's on, go ahead.
And
and it's on coaches and the people planning things to open up their thinking and how they market those things as well, right? So there's could be a shift where it's more inviting for a Black man to come to a vision board event, but the way I'm putting it out there maybe doesn't work for them, It also made me, while you were saying what you were just sharing, it made me think the whole like barriers. At the end of the day, visioning in our brains and in our bodies is free.
Yep.
You don't need to have a poster board and some magazines and any of that stuff. You also, one of the, people think, oh, it's the spa and the this and the that. And yes, those are great. There is a barrier there when it comes to economics. Breathing is free, and breathing, deep breathing.
So, this commercial break is brought to you by Positive Philter. Yes, myself, because I have no sponsors. So, if you really enjoy listening to this podcast, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Every review helps spread the message of this podcast to other people. And if you have a favorite episode, please reshare that episode randomly on your Facebook wall or through your Instagram stories. The more and more people share these episodes and get them out to other listeners, the better this podcast will do. So, back to your regular scheduled episode.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So breathing is free.
I'm here.
I got a gap.
Breathing is free.
So I'll add that. I don't know. We had like a quick gap. I'll put a little commercial in there somewhere.
Okay.
Back from commercial break. But you said breathing is free.
Yeah, breathing is free. So even just taking a second to close your eyes and do some deep breathing. There's also an exercise, again, that's free that helps you get centered if you can take the time to do it or in a space that you feel comfortable doing it. But if you're in a meeting, like go to the bathroom and do this in the bathroom stall, right? Or wherever you can go in your office. So if you hold each finger on each hand, like go through the exercise of all digits and do deep breath 3 times per finger, that's a really great centering exercise for breathing. And when you breathe, hold it, like breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, and let it out for somewhere between 4 and 8. And if you can vocalize when you let it out, even better.
Gotcha.
Because into our sympathetic nervous system, which is our part of our body that says, yep, we're not being chased by a lion. I know it feels that way. you can calm down, you can rest, you can relax in this moment, right? And so just that kind of release and letting that out can get us centered. And all of that is free. It takes time. That's the price you pay is time. But even that takes like 30 seconds to do that exercise.
Okay, so this is my last, last question. What would you say to someone that is adamantly against doing it? Let's say this is your last sell to say, for try a vision board. What would be your selling point?
So here's the bottom line, Phil. If someone's not ready, they're not ready. It's just like if someone has an addiction and they're not ready to let it go or work through it, they're not ready. And I've learned this working with coaching clients. They'll come to me and say, I want to do blah, 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 blah. But when we get into it, they're not ready. And so we have to rethink, okay, what does this look like? Because you aren't ready to do this. You're demonstrating over and over again, you're not ready to do this. So when it feels like they're ready, then they'll do it. For me, there's no pressure here. Again, it's not a should. I don't believe in shoulds. So if it sounds like it's something that is appealing to you, if it appeals to your sense of let's try it out and see if it works, even if it's to prove Phil wrong, right? Yeah. Whatever works for people to test it out, I'd invite them to do that. But at the end of the day, if they feel resistant to it, then just let it be. Pick it up when you're ready.
I love it. All right. So I lied. That wasn't my last question. This is the part of my show. This is the part of my show I call shot for shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first or I go first?
Oh, you can go first since you put me on the hot seat.
Okay. So I see that you moved. You're a native of South Carolina and now you live in Atlanta. So as you think, Atlanta, what would be like the main difference? I think everyone tries to lump the South together, right? The South. So what would you say is the big differences that you see between South Carolina and Georgia, or maybe more specifically where you grew up in South Carolina, because I probably can't do a whole state, and where you live in a metropolitan area like Atlanta?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I grew up on a farm about 20 to 30 minutes from Myrtle Beach. So kind of that push-pull, right, tourist world and all that comes with it, and the middle of nowhere with all the animals, farm life stuff, and Decatur in Metro Atlanta. And so the number one thing that pops out, which is why I've stayed here, is the difference in diversity. And I don't mean that in the kind of way we throw that word these days, but for me, I have a multiracial child, and it was really important for her to be in an environment where she gets to see people that look like her. And so I've stayed. And even though, the introvert part of me likes the idea of having a house on the farm somewhere with just me and all the animals, right? So the diversity, and the word that comes to mind, which makes me laugh as I say it, is like the flavor. So I'm someone who likes to try different things, experience new things. And where I grew up, it's a lot of the same people, same beliefs, same. So for me, I like all the differences and the things I have access to here that I didn't there. So
definitely
that's my answer.
And so were you near Conway?
Yeah.
Yeah, because my best friend Hillard, who's going to be on the show later tonight, my best friend, he went to Coastal Carolina, so I've been down there for Black Bike Week.
Oh yeah.
I don't have a bike. We just walked down up and down Myrtle Beach Strip, whatever. But that was quite a show.
That's quite the time. Yeah, I was going anywhere but Coastal. I was going anywhere but Coastal.
I was like, I know you got to get away from that place.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your question for me?
Let's see. What are you most excited for in 2022?
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about that goal setting and all that. But, honestly, what I'm excited for in 2022, I mean, I think hopefully slowing down of this pandemic, like if I could be honest, hopefully that could work, and obviously there's no normalcy or whatever, but just getting to a place where we open, we close, we open, and we can get to a consistent place of opening, because I am an extrovert. And I would say overall, this has been a very hard 2 years on my well-being, particularly in people engagement. I know that me and you are engaging right now via technology. But I still really don't think that certain technologies don't replicate real in-person engagement.
Yeah.
I joke a little bit, but I ain't gonna lie. Like if I was in college during this, I would have got COVID like 3 times because I would have gone to parties. I would have, forgot my mask because I kind of absent-minded. But like this socially, like this has been very hard on my social well-being. So, what I'm looking forward to, and hopefully, I do see the timeline. I see, whether you believe in the science of vaccines or not. I'm not trying to go on that tangent, but I just believe that this period cannot last forever. It's got to tail in and slow down. And so I'm hoping, knock on wood, that the end of 2022 is a actual showing of that slowing down, and then 2023 slowing down, and maybe someday this will be like a glimpse, because obviously we experienced a pandemic back in 1920 something. It lasted, but now it's in the history books, and hopefully I think that this is going to be the same way, right? Like this can't last forever, hopefully.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking forward to. Because I think my goals are still going to happen regardless, but I think also a lot of my goals were attached to people. So I feel like I can rip and run more with my goals once this world. I've been making do with what I got, been making do with my goals with technology, but I think I can go full in a little bit better or more efficiently once I feel safe doing in-person stuff. So that's what I'm looking forward to, straight up.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show. This has been great. I definitely support you. Definitely shout you out and reshare everything you've done. I am a whole advocate of what you're doing and a believer. I bought in. It took me 1 year, to do it and say, wow, this is something I really like doing. Now it's an annual practice. I might try to 5 years, but I've never been that far out in my mind. But I'm a day-to-day person. So, but I definitely believe in what you're doing. And I think, I'll be totally transparent. If it was anyone other than you, and your welcoming and your warmness, I think I probably wouldn't have bought in as much. So you made it a very welcoming new activity for me and Dorothy, and I really appreciate that. So, whatever you do, I support. Joyful Living Coaching. Shout out to y'all. But as we go through, this is the part of the show where the stage is set is for you. Shout outs and plugs. So please show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs. These are ways that the listeners can engage with you, follow up with you, support you. So shout outs and plugs.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And thank you for that word of affirmation of what I'm doing. This really is my purpose work. And so working with folks like you is affirming of that. So I want to shout out what's most recent in my mind is I just did a vision board party with a new colleague, Erica Denham, with Step in Purpose. And she's fantastic. She just launched a journal, a gratitude journal. And with that, on actually Valentine's Day, in the name of self-love, is going to start a 21-day gratitude challenge for anyone that's interested in that. And if you hear this past that time, her journal will still be available. So follow Step in Purpose with Erica Denham on all the socials and check out her website and order that sweet journal. I'm looking forward to getting my copy and getting started on it. Gratitude really does change our attitude, as they say. So, in terms of connecting,
plugs, whatever you want.
So I was gonna say, in terms of connecting with me, follow me on Instagram. In particular, if you're on Instagram, is where I really try to be a source of sharing thought-provoking questions, as well as adding more joy to the world. We have enough of the negative stuff. I want to add more of the positive, and like the real positive, not like the sugary sweet, doesn't mean anything stuff. Yeah, not that toxic stuff. And so follow me on Instagram at Maureen Sweatman. There is a Facebook page as well, Joyful Living Coaching. And then if you want to know more about resources, I have lots of resources on my website, joyfullivingcoaching.com. You can also book a consult there with me, a free consult, if you're interested in learning more about coaching and working with me as a coach. So you can book that there. So social for Joyful Living Coaching, Maureen Sweatman, for all your joy scrolling needs. That's what my clients called it. So, and I've run with it. I love it. Joy scrolling. and the website, joyfullivingcoaching.com. Thank you so much, Phil, for having me. It's such a pleasure to have met you and stay connected with you and all that you're doing to add more positivity to the world. I really, really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. And, I definitely, as I said earlier, I'm an experiment, the mad scientist of well-being. I try it. If it works, I keep on doing it, and it worked for me. So, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep going. So thank you so much. That's one. Now it's just another tool in my tool belt for well-being, gratitude journaling, all that. I buy into all that stuff. I try it out. If it works for me, it works for me. So please, listeners, please, if you have any questions, please follow up with Maureen. Check it out. Try vision boarding. And, maybe her colleague tried journaling too. Try all those things. And if you have any questions for me, you can call the hotline, which is 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Sharing positivity is a movement. Please share this episode with your family and friends and keep on living good and being nice to other people. All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.